Right. So question 13 is something related to production possibility curve, as you can see right now on the screen. So first, quickly tell me what is the answer, then I'll explain it. Okay, so pretty much everyone is saying blue, blue, blue. We'll see. So the question is about when moving from A towards PPC. Okay. So you are at point A here. From A, you are moving towards PPC. They are not saying exactly where, right? You're moving towards PPC. Even if the opportunity cost is 0, production of both X and Y are expanded. Only when, right? So one thing is important here, guys. When you are doing an MCQ or essay type question, another point for you to note is that when you are doing an MCQ or essay question, first thing is for you to understand the question properly. That is like, if you can properly understand the question, you are halfway there to your answer, right? It's so important. Because some of us, what we do is we read a question and we are like, oh, okay, this is what they're asking. We just assume that's what they are asking. And then we go and find a answer, mark it and move on. That's something we tend to do. Right? We read a question once and we are like, oh, okay, this is what they might be asking. We move to the answer. If we think there's one correct answer for us, we mark it and move on. Once we go out and then talk with our friends, the friends are like, no, they were asking for something else. Then we realize, oh my God, I misread the question or I misunderstood the question. Has it ever happened to you? You do a question, you read it, you mark an answer, you are confident you are right, but you go out and discuss it with a friend. Now the friend says, no, there was another value here. You were supposed to do something else. And then you realize how dumb you are at that point. So many times, right? That happens all the time. So that's why I always say reading and understanding the question is like 50% of your answer, right? 50% of your answer. The balance 50 is you marking the answer or writing the answer. Understanding the question is half the way. Why? Because you see here, when you read the question, it looks like a little bit complicated, the way they have worded it. When moving from point A towards PPC, okay, that's one part. You're moving from A towards PPC. And they're saying, even if the opportunity cost is 0, that means they're saying we are not giving up anything else. Nothing is lost in production. Right? No opportunity cost here. Production of both X and Y are expanded. So here, you're going from A to somewhere towards the PPC. Production of both X and Y, 2 products are given in the PPC, both are increasing. That is something we have not learned or we don't normally come across in production possibilities curve. Because always what happens is we see, okay, when you move from one point to another, what happens is production of one product increases, the other will drop. That's how we normally go through whenever we have a production possibility curve. That's what we normally go through. But here they are saying both the products are increasing. That means no opportunity cost. When will that happen? Right? That will happen. You need to understand this. Let's say we are going from B to C point. We are going from point B to point C. If that is the case, as you can see here, when you move from point B to C, there is an increase in X product, but at the same time, there is a drop in Y growth. Because why? You guys tell me the reason. Why, when you move from B to C, one product there is an increase, X product there is an increase in production, but Y product we are losing. What's the reason? I'm not clear. Okay. Now am I clear or still am I like that? Am I clear now? Sure. Okay. Now clear, right? So why, when you move from B to C, we are having a situation where only one good is increasing, the other is dropping? Exactly. When you are on the PPC, we are fully employed, right? That means when you are producing point B, whatever quantity on Y good, whatever quantity on X good you are producing, right? That combination is utilizing all available resources. There's nothing left extra to increase product X. If you want to increase product X, the only way to do that is by taking away some resources from Y goods production. That's why when you move from B to C, X good is increasing, Y is dropping, because the increase in the X good, we have increased that by taking some resources away from good Y's production. That will happen only when we are fully employed. But the thing here is, in this question, when you are at point A, we are not fully employed. That's the point here. You are at point A here. Point A shows what concept? Here, point A is representing what? Unemployment. Exactly, Zainab. So at point A, you are unemployed. Right? Still, I'm not clear. Why is that? Give me a moment. Now, what do you think? Am I clear or still lagging or something? Sure. Right. Give me a minute. Right. I believe now everything is fine. Something's wrong with my other mic, I believe. Right. So here, when you are at point A, as we already said, we are unemployed. So when you go towards the PPC now, right? When you go towards the PPC now, right? What's going to happen is, one thing you see here, when you go from point A to B, let's do that. Let me zoom in a little. Right? When you go from point A to B, what's happening here is you can see there's only one product increasing. What is that product? Right, only we are seeing an increase in good Y. Because X product, you can see at point A and point C, the same quantity. So only one product is seeing an increase. But on the other hand, you should note here, we didn't lose any X product when we increased Y good. Right? Why is that? Normally, what we have learned is when we increase one product, the other product would drop. Here, that didn't happen. In X good, the production is constant, no change, but in Y good, there is an increase. What is the reason? Exactly, because at point A, we were unemployed. There were some land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship which were unemployed, not used in production. So here in this case, when we started to increase Y good, right, when we started or when we increased Y good, what happened is we were not taking resources away from X goods production, but rather we were using those unused, unemployed resources. That is why Y good production is going up, whereas X good production still remains the same. Right? That's why we normally say when in unemployment, let's say you are increasing production, you won't see opportunity cost. That is a situation where opportunity cost is zero, because you can see here one production is going up while the other remains the same, no drop. Same happens when it comes to the movement from A to D also. Same thing. When you go from point A to D, what do you think? What's the product that's seeing an increase? Now, when you are at point D, you can see X product has seen an increase, but Y product, no drop. Again, no opportunity cost. X product has seen an increase, but Y product, no loss. So no opportunity cost. In both these instances, opportunity cost is zero. Right? Opportunity cost is zero in both these instances. Why? Again, here X good is increased by using those unemployed land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. That's why there's no drop in Y production. Right? And then go back to the question and see, they are saying opportunity cost is zero, okay, but both X and Y goods are supposed to be increased. That's the question. So when you go from A to B, when you go from A to D, you can only see one product seeing an increase while the other remains constant. Right? Other remains constant. Why? Is there someone who is unmuted? Right. Now I believe everyone is on mute. Right. But when you go from point A to C, take that. When you go from point A to C, what's happening here? You can see that production of both X good and Y good are seeing an increase. Here, Y good is increasing, X good is increasing, and no opportunity cost here. Why? Because both the productions are going up. Nothing is coming down. They are not losing anything. We are just increasing production of both X good and Y good. This is possible again. Why? Because at point A, we were unemployed. When you move towards point C, what's happening? We are using these unused resources, labor, land, capital, entrepreneurship, All that were unused are now used in production of Y good, and also some are used in X goods production. That's why both the productions are seeing an increase. So for this question, the answer is movement from point A to C that will result in zero opportunity cost, and both Y good and X good will see an increase. Is that clear? Some of you might have answered this question just by thinking, okay, when we go from A to C only, both the productions are increasing, without knowing all these background information I just gave, right? Why that happens, how that happens, and stuff, right? So just wanted to take you through that, because opportunity cost normally, right? Opportunity cost is something we always see in real world because of resources being very limited. When you increase one product, there will be a drop in the other production. Obviously, in production, we always see opportunity cost. But in this case, since we are unemployed, we don't see opportunity cost. Zainab, that we can't say. Based on different situations, it might vary, but in this case, it seems like equal, right? That you don't have to think about. So the answer for this question is moving point A towards C, blue color one. Next question. This is a question where we are entering into which chapter now? Amna, can you raise your volume on your side? Because the rain is in your side now, so you have to increase the volume. Right. Here we are getting into chapter number 2, right? So chapter number 2 mainly talks about which concepts? Actually, if we look at chapter number 2, you can divide it into mainly 3 parts. What do you think are those 3 parts? Demand, supply, and then what? Demand, supply, and market, right? Demand is consumers being able to buy certain quantities of a product at different prices. Supply is producers being able to, willing and able to sell different quantities of product based on different prices. That is supply and demand. Now you put them both together, you have market, where producers and consumers both come together, interact, and exchange goods, services, and factors. That's what a market is. Those are just theories, right? So you might already know them, very basic stuff. And here we have a question from chapter 2. What is the answer? What do you think? Right. So if you have a look at this, when we talk about demand, we also talk about something called the determinants of demand. What decides demand. So this question we are doing is related to that, right? The determinants of demand and how the changes in the determinants affect demand. So here you look at the question, sugar and jaggery are considered as substitutes for each other. So we can use sugar, or instead of sugar, in some cases we use jaggery, right? Or in some cases where you need jaggery, if you don't have it, you can use sugar instead, right? So they are substitutes to one another. Therefore, look at the question here. They are saying, okay, if price of sugar is dropping, okay, price of sugar is dropping, what would happen? And they have given 4 situations in the answer. So you have to pick the right one, right? You have to pick the right one. So you see here, price of sugar is dropping here. And all the answers are talking about the amount we buy or customers buy of jaggery, right? Customers buy of jaggery. So first thing you need to know here is price of sugar is dropping. First tell me what will happen to quantity demanded of sugar. Will it increase or drop? When price of sugar drops, obviously we'll buy more sugar. That's how it works. So that's fine, right? When price of sugar drops, we buy more sugar. Okay, that's how normally it works. Is that clear, Hamdan? But price of jaggery, they didn't say anything. So we have to assume that's not changing. That's not gonna change. But since sugar and jaggery are substitutes to one another, when price of sugar drops, what do you think will happen to the quantity of jaggery consumers normally buy? Will it go up or will it come down? So you guys are saying quantity demanded of jaggery will see a drop. That is correct. Why? Because when the price of sugar drops, what will happen? Normally, sugar demand is going up. How is it going up? People who usually bought jaggery are now like, okay, jaggery and sugar are almost the same thing, substitutes. Now sugar price has dropped, no. So jaggery is relatively expensive now. Sugar is more attractive now. So those who bought jaggery will move on and buy sugar. So that's what's going to happen in real world, right? That's what's going to happen in real world. Look at the answers now. First answer is the demand for jaggery to decrease. Okay, we would expect the demand for jaggery to decrease. So here the word decrease is there, and they're saying demand for jaggery is decreasing. Okay, we'll keep it as it is. The next answer says the demand for jaggery increase. So increase is not happening at all. Anyway, we know that for sure. So that's out. Then you see the next answer, the quantity demanded of jaggery is decreasing. So here also they are saying somehow quantity demand of jaggery is decreasing. The green one says the price of jaggery to increase. No, price we don't know. The question doesn't talk about it, so we'll have to leave it like that, right? So my question now is, you see the red one and the yellow one. In both instances, they are saying, in the first one, they are saying demand for jaggery is decreasing. In the yellow one, they are saying quantity demanded for jaggery is decreasing. Out of these two, which one do you think is the right way to explain what would happen if price of sugar drops in the market of jaggery? How would you say that? Demand for jaggery drops or quantity demanded for jaggery drops? This is a very, very easy question, but something where a lot of the students get confused. Very good, Halana. Very good, Vinusha, Bagus, well done. So this is the thing. Here, when you look at demand of jaggery, what's happening is you take jaggery as the product because that's what we are talking in the answer about, no, jaggery. So jaggery, how much consumers buy of jaggery is dropping. Now the problem is whether we should call this demand of jaggery is decreasing or quantity demanded of jaggery is decreasing. This is decided mainly based on which determinant change is causing the change in the demand, right? If you go to, give me a moment, I'll get you to the handout now. If you go and have a look at the handout here, you can see there are a lot of determinants deciding demand for a product. So if you take jaggery, demand for jaggery will be decided by price of jaggery also. When price of jaggery goes up, demand of jaggery will come down. When price of jaggery comes down, demand for jaggery can go up. So price of that particular good jaggery will decide its demand. Likewise, related products such as substitute goods, complementary goods, their prices also will decide demand of jaggery, right? Likewise, consumers' income will also decide demand of jaggery. When consumers have a higher income, they can buy more jaggery now, right? So you see here, all these determinants play a role in deciding demand of any product. Now, when you talk about these determinants and when they change, we know demand for a product is going to change. That's where you see here a product's quantity demanded, when it sees a change, it can be divided into mainly two types, right? The amount we buy of a product, they change, no, that can be divided into mainly two types. One is, we call them change in demand. The other is change in quantity demanded. Change in demand and change in quantity demanded. Now, this is something you might have learned before, right? You might have learned somewhere in your class, or prior to this, you might have come across this. But this is some area where a lot of the students have huge confusions. So, first of all, can someone tell me what is this change in demand? Any idea? Any idea what is this change in quantity demanded? They ask change in demand first. Okay. So this is how it works. Let's say there is a product for which price is going up. Let's take jaggery. Price of jaggery is going up and how much we buy of jaggery is dropping. Or price of jaggery is dropping and how much we buy of jaggery is going up. Now, this change in how much we buy of a product is caused by what? Caused by that particular goods price going up or coming down. That is called change in quantity demanded. While other factors remain constant. That means All these other factors except the price of the particular good are constant. Only the price of the particular good is going up or coming down. If that causes a change in how much we buy of a product, that is called change in quantity demanded. Especially this one where the price is going down and the quantity demanded is going up, we call it, what do we call it? What's the name we usually give for it? When price drops, we are seeing an increase in quantity demanded. That is called very good, Inusha. That is called extension in demand. Extension in demand, or we call it increase in quantity demanded. That is one type of change in quantity demanded. Extension in demand. This is where quantity demanded is increasing when price drops. Then what is the other one? When price of a product increases, quantity demanded is dropping. What is that called? Right, that's called contraction in demand. Contraction in demand. Right, cool. Likewise, we have the other type, which is called change in demand. Now, change in demand is, again, very simple. What happens here is, now we assume price to remain constant, right? Let's say price of the product, there is no change. This price is remaining constant. But for example, customers' income, consumers' income is going up. You as customer, you are earning more money now. Price of the product is still the same. But when your income goes up, you can buy more of a product. No? So what will happen then? Price will remain constant. But since consumers' income has gone up, this time also you can see how much we buy of a product is going up. Right? How much we buy of a product is going up. But this time, this increase in the amount we buy of the product is not caused by a change in the price, but rather it's caused by something other than the price. Something other than the price. Now, this is what change in demand means. Change in demand means what's happening? Price is constant, but some other factor changing is causing the amount we buy of a product, right? Amount we buy of a product. That's where you see the jaggery and sugar comes in. The jaggery's demand didn't change because of a change in the price of jaggery. But jaggery's demand in the question changed because a change in the price of sugar. Right? Change in the price of sugar. So that makes this change in demand, not change in quantity demanded. Right? Because in the question, jaggery's demand is dropping, that's what they are saying, but it was not caused by an increase in the price of jaggery itself. If that has happened, we would have called it an increase in quantity demanded. But in this case, in the question, what happened was sugar price dropped. So people who were buying jaggery reduced buying jaggery and they moved on to sugar. So what has happened here? The demand of jaggery has dropped. The demand of jaggery has dropped. Something like what has happened here. Here, when price remained constant, consumer income went up. As a result, demand of jaggery has gone up. We won't say that is increasing quantity demanded. We'd say that is increase in demand. Increase in demand. Likewise, let's say price is constant, but consumer income is dropping. As a result, quantity demanded of jaggery is dropping means this would be called a decrease in demand. Decrease in demand. So this relationship you should understand, and to understand this is not a very small thing. If I'm explaining this, for this itself, I took so much time. If I'm explaining the whole thing, it would take about a whole class, more than 2 hours I'd need. But luckily, I have done a seminar on this, right? I've done a seminar on this twice actually, and there is the recording of it is available on YouTube. What I'll do is after this class, I'll put that recording in the Telegram group. It'll be about 3 hours something. So you can go through the whole change in demand, change in quantity demanded, change in supply, change in quantity supplied, everything with past paper questions and what do you call in the session itself, I'm doing certain questions and answering them, discussing the answers, everything. So that video is there. I will put out that in the Telegram group, so you can go through it and get a proper understanding. Yeah, recently I did that at Colonna Edu Zone, but for the 2021 batch also I did it once. So both the recordings are there on YouTube. I'll just put it to you. Okay. So that way you can understand the whole thing about change in quantity demanded, change in demand, change in supply, change in quantity supply, because only then you can easily answer this question. If not, if I'm trying to explain everything now, I'll have to take the whole 2-hour session, right? So here in summary, what's happening is price of sugar is dropping. As a result, quantity supplied of sugar will increase, but the question is not including that answer. The answer talks about jaggery's demand. What's happening? You can see the amount we buy of jaggery would drop, but this drop in the amount we buy of jaggery is not caused by a change in price of jaggery itself, but rather it is caused by sugar's price, a related product's price. So you can see this related product's price drop has resulted in a decrease in demand of jaggery. Decrease in demand of jaggery. The answer is the red one. Why it's not the yellow one? Simple. It would have been yellow if the amount we buy of jaggery has gone down because of an increase in price of jaggery itself. Then only we would have called it quantity demand of jaggery has dropped. But in the instance here, price of jaggery has not changed. Some other factor changing has caused the amount of jaggery to be bought less. That would be called decrease in demand of jaggery. Is that clear? If price change causes a change in how much we buy of a product, that's called change in quantity demanded. If something other than price is changing, that is causing the amount we buy of a product to change, that is called change in demand. Okay, in this case, the amount we buy of jaggery has changed because of change in some other product. That's why it is the demand of jaggery changing. We don't say it's quantity demanded of jaggery changing. Okay, that is a very small thing, but can be very confusing if you don't have a proper understanding. That's why I have done a seminar on that specifically, because this is somewhere, this is a certain portion in your chapter which normally about, if you take your A-level paper, at least about 4 to 5 marks sometimes in 1 year's paper is related to this particular part. This knowledge of change in demand, change in quantity demanded, change in supply, change in quantity supplied. The knowledge of these 4 concepts would enable you to get about 4 to 5, sometimes up to 8 marks in your A-level paper, including part 1 MCQs and part 2 essay questions also, right? So if you don't know this part, there's a chance you might lose out on 4 to 5 marks easily. Okay, so it's very important. So after the class, I will put out the link in the group. Go have a look when you have some free time. If I don't put the link, just put me a message on WhatsApp or Telegram to remind me to do that. Okay. Next question is related to price elasticity of demand. So what is the answer for this question? Yeah, what's the answer? Quick, quick, quick. Right. So first up, to get the answer right for this question, you need to know what is this price elasticity of demand. So as a concept, what is PED? Right. PED actually shows the responsiveness of quantity demanded for a change in price. That means, let's say, for example, price is changing, increasing by 10%. We know when price increases, quantity demanded is going to drop. That's what's gonna normally happen. But PED will tell us, okay, if price is going up by 10%, quantity demanded will drop, but by how much quantity demanded is going to drop. So PED will tell us that percentage drop in quantity demanded also. It will let us measure that. That's why PED is so important. Right? Now to measure this PED, there are some equations we use. Tell me one equation that you can use to measure price elasticity of demand. One is the percentage one. Percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in price. Right? That is one. Another equation that you can use is PED equals change in quantity demanded over change in price into price over quantity demanded. That's another equation, right? This, you learn it under something called point price elasticity of demand, a certain approach to measure PED, point price elasticity of demand. That means measuring elasticity at a particular price point. That's what point price elasticity of demand means. You take one price, at that price we measure what is the elasticity. Now remember this, the second equation and this first equation will get you the same answers, right? You can use either of them, you'll get the same answer. Now there's another equation that you can use to measure PED. That is, you see, change in quantity demanded and over change in price is actually used to measure the variance of the slope in the demand equation. So if you take a demand equation here, what is the slope? What's the value of the slope? It's -8, right? The slope is -8 because normally demand equation goes like A minus BP, right? A minus BP. Remember, this minus is always there in the demand equation because the slope is always negative, right? We say demand law says price goes up, demand comes down. No, so always the slope is negative, right? That's why the demand equation all it has that minus integrated in it. So when you see z -8, right, that is the slope value. In this case, B is equal to -8. And so what are we doing here? Something's not right. Okay, right. So in place of this change in QD over change in price, we have written B multiplied by price over quantity demanded. So you can use either of these three equations and end up getting the same price elasticity of demand coefficient. And at the same time, there is another equation, another approach. What is that approach? To measure PED. There are mainly two approaches. One is point price elasticity of demand. The other is arc price elasticity of demand. So to measure arc price elasticity of demand, the equation goes like change in quantity demanded over change in price into price 1 plus price 2 over quantity demanded 1 plus quantity demanded 2. Sorry, quantity demanded 1 plus quantity demanded 2. How this is different from point? Simple. In point PED, we take only one price point. At that point, whatever the PED, we measure. In arc, what do? We take two price points, and within the range of two price points, we measure the elasticity. That's the difference, right? Now, coming back to this question, demand equation is given. QD equals 200 minus 8P. What is the value of the coefficient of PED of the good when the price is 10 rupees? My question now is, for this question to find the answer, will you use arc elasticity of demand or will you use point elasticity of demand? Which approach should be taken? Point or arc? And give me the reason also. Right, we should be using, so if anyone has issues typing, you can unmute yourself and say the answer out loud, okay? Now, here we would be going along with the point price elasticity of demand equation because you see here in the question, they are just giving one price point. At that price, what is the PED? That's the question. So at that price point, we have to measure the PED. So it's supposed to be point price elasticity of demand. And out of these three equations, we can use to measure point PED. For this particular question, which one you would go with? Would it be the first equation, second equation, or the third equation? You'd go with the third equation, right? Why third is the way to go here is, that doesn't mean you can't use the other two. You can, but third would get you to the answer very easily, because you see here, if you use the third equation, the B value is directly given in the demand equation given, right? The B value is directly given. So you take that -8 and put it here in place of B, into price. It's given in the question. What's the price we are supposed to find the PED at? It's 10 rupees. And at 10 rupees, what is the demand? That you have to find out. How? You have the demand equation. No. So it's 200 minus 8. In the place of price, put 10 rupees. So you will know now at 10 rupee price, what is the demand. So 200 minus 80, demand at 10 rupee is 120 units. So here you put that 120. Now you just do your math and get the PED coefficient, which would be equal to, I believe, so this 0 is cut by this 0. You'll be ending up with -8 over 12. That means it's going to be -2 over 3. So always when it's 2 over 3, your final answer is going to be 0.66. But don't make this mistake. You must put the minus, because otherwise, you see there is 0.66 is given, minus 0.66 is also given. So you have to make sure the plus or minus sign is properly put in the final answer. So the answer for this question is the blue one. Cool. Awesome. Next question. So again, in this question, I didn't just explain how to find the answer of this question. I have explained, or kind of I have taken you through a revision of PED, the two approaches of PED, and all the equations you can use to measure PED, right? So next question. Okay, so you have a question here. What do you think the answer is? Then I'll explain it. You missed the minus. That means you missed 1 mark in your A-level exam. In vain. Since you missed the minus sign here, 1 mark is minused from your A-level result. That's how serious that minus sign is. That's how important that minus sign is. Now, again, you'll see this is a question related to that change in quantity demand, a change in demand, change in supply, change in quantity supplied. This is related to that area. Only if you have a proper understanding in those concepts, you can easily identify the answer for this. If you don't know, or if you are finding it difficult to get the answer for this question, I would recommend you to go and watch that YouTube recording I talked about earlier. I will put the link after the class. Don't miss. Right, anyway, let me explain now. The demand curve of X consumer, right? Demand curve of X consumer is as follows. So the demand curve you see here, right? Demand curve of you see here is the market demand curve, or is it the individual demand curve? It's the individual demand curve, because this demand curve only talks about one customer's demand, not the entire market's demand. Okay. So demand is normally divided into those two types: individual demand, market demand. Right. So coming back to the question, to move from point S, so point S is where it's here, towards point R. Okay, from S we are moving to point R. So in this direction the movement is happening. Okay. To move from point S to point R along the demand curve, out of the following four, which should happen? Out of the following four answers, which one can cause that movement from S to R? That is the question. Right. And this, I think, is a pretty easy question actually, because you see here, when you are moving along the demand curve, right, it can be caused only by one change, or it can be caused only by a change in one particular specific factor. And what is that factor? Out of all the determinants of demand, only one determinant can make this movement along the demand curve. And what is that determinant? Price of that particular good. Exactly. Price of that particular good. Because anything other than price, let's say consumer income is going up or coming down, consumer taste, preference is going up or coming down, number of buyers in the market is going up or coming down, right? Anything other than the particular product's price will result in the demand curve itself shifting to the right or to the left. It would shift when, let's say, consumer income is increasing, consumer taste is increasing, or number of buyers in the market increases. We say demand would increase. At that time, the curve will shift out. But in this case, the curve is not shifting. What's happening? You are just moving from point S towards point R. That means when you are at point S, you see price is at P1, demand is at Q1. When you move to point R, you see price is at P, demand is at Q. So what has happened now? This movement towards R from S is caused by increase in the price of the product. When the price increased, quantity demanded has dropped. When the price increased, quantity demanded has dropped. That's why you are moving from S point to R point. Price has increased, quantity demanded has dropped. So the answer is here in the blue one. The price of the product should increase. So price of the product has increased, quantity demanded has dropped. That means you are now at point R, not at point S anymore. Is that clear? For example, let's say you are at point S now initially, without the price increasing. Let's say consumers' income has increased. Consumers' income has increased. And if that's the case, what would have happened is price wouldn't have changed. But consumer could have bought more now. Let's say here it's 100 units consumer is buying at 10 rupees. When consumer's income goes up, what will happen is, even if the price still remains at 10, consumer will buy maybe 120 units now at the same 10 rupee price, at the same 10 rupee price. So what will happen then? There's no movement along the demand curve, but there will be a shift in the demand curve, right? So that's what's going to happen when Anything other than the price increases. Only when the price increases, you will see movement along the same demand curve, because we have the price in this axis now. So when price goes up, demand comes down. That can be shown in the same demand curve without drawing a new demand curve outside or inside. Is that clear? So one additional point I'll say right now itself, when there is a change in quantity demanded, right? When there is a change in quantity demanded, when you show it in a graph, the way to show it is simply by a movement along the demand curve. Movement along the demand curve, just like what is shown in the graph in the screen right now. Movement along the demand curve. Remember this. Then how do you show a change in demand? Change in quantity demanded can be shown by a movement along the demand curve. Then change in demand, how do you show it? Very good, Zainab. It can be shown by a shift in the demand curve. Right? So remember that difference. So here that curve didn't shift, just we are moving along the curve, and we know that change in quantity demanded is caused by change in price of the particular good, while other factors are constant. So that's why here we went with this answer. Right? We went with the blue answer. Is that clear? Awesome, right? So next question. Demand curve of good X is given below. Okay. This is a past paper question, I think. Change in market equilibrium quantity from point A to B could be caused by what? Another very good question. What is the answer? Yeah, tell me the answer. What do you think? But this is not as easy as the previous one, though. That I can tell. Right? It's not as straightforward as the previous one. Easy or hard depends on how much you know a certain thing. So this question, I would say, is not as straightforward as the previous question. That's the only thing I can tell for sure. Right. So this is how it works. Look here. And Listen very carefully. Demand curve of good X is given below. Okay, demand curve is given. Change in market equilibrium quantity from point A to B could be caused by. So here they are giving one hint to you in the question itself that it's the market equilibrium quantity that's changing, right? Market equilibrium quantity that's changing. Why they are saying market equilibrium quantity rather than just saying, okay, we are moving from A to B only? They could have just said a point along the demand curve, you are moving from A to B. They could have said that, just that. But they said changing market equilibrium quantity from point A to B. Why they said that was, to do this question, you have to draw the supply curve also. You have to draw the supply curve also. Why? The reason is, look at the answers given here. An increase in the price of substitute good. Okay, so we are initially at point A. No? Okay, we'll draw that part, point A. Right, let's say we are at point A. So if we are at point A, cool. And let's say there is an increase in the price of substitute good. So X is the product here. And let's say Y product is the substitute good. If the price of substitute good, right, price of substitute good is going up and all, increase in the price of substitute good means, what do you think will happen to the demand of X product? Will it increase or will it decrease? Tell that first. Will the demand increase or will the demand decrease? Because that is so important. You need to know that first. Increase or decrease in demand, you need to know first. So what's happening here is simply you can take X product as, let's say, jaggery here, like in the previous question, and the substitute product is sugar. So they are saying sugar price is increasing. What will happen to demand of jaggery? We know that when sugar price goes up, sugar demand would drop. While the price of jaggery is constant, people who bought sugar now will go and buy jaggery more. Why? Because sugar has become expensive. Since sugar has become expensive, we are going towards its substitute and buying more of that substitute, right? So here, when that happened, how do you show that in a graph, this increase in demand? Do you show that by a movement along the demand curve, or do you show that by a shift of the demand curve? So we have concluded that this is an increase in demand, right? When you talk about the increase in price of substitute product, it's an increase in demand, a change in demand. How do you show it? By a shift in the demand curve. By a shift in the demand curve. So you see here, when demand curve shifts like this, you are not moving from A to B. What you are doing is you are moving from this A point to, the price will remain constant, but the demand will be increased. Something like this. You didn't move to B point at all. To move to B point, you should be on the same demand curve. You can't have a new demand curve popping up. It will pop up if there is an increase in the price of substitute good. So answer number 1 is out. Look at answer number 2, an increase in consumers' income. What will happen when there is an increase in consumers' income? Will there be a movement along the demand curve, or will the demand curve shift? Atika, what do you think? Rizna, Shaliha, Umaira, what do you think? Will there be an increase in the demand curve or shift in the demand curve? Or will there be a movement along the same demand curve you see on the screen? When consumers' income increases. When consumers' income increases, again, that is an increase in demand because price is still the same, no? Right? Only consumers' income is increasing. So price has to remain the same. But since consumer is earning more, consumer can buy more. That means the curve is shifting again. A decrease in consumers' income, what will happen? What will happen to the demand curve? This time again, the curve will shift, but earlier consumer income increased, so demand increased, curve shifted out. This time, consumer income is what is happening? It's dropping. Consumer's income is dropping. So for the same price, now consumer can buy less than before. Consumer can buy a lesser quantity than before. So curve will shift inwards. So all the first three answers are out. Only one left. And look at that question, that answer, a decrease in cost of production of good X. First of all, do you think this a decrease in cost of production of good X, a change in cost of production, is a determinant of demand? Is it a determinant of demand? What do you think? It's not a determinant of demand. Then what is it? Cost of production of a certain good is a determinant of what? You see here, the list of determinants of demand doesn't include cost of production. Does it include cost of production? No. It doesn't include cost of production. But what include cost of production is you see here, when you go to supply, in supply, you'll see under the determinants of supply, price of inputs is given. That refers to cost of production. Cost of production. So cost of production is a factor that will decide supply, not demand. It will decide supply, not demand. So here, that is why I told you for this question, since all the other three answers are out, you are supposed to draw supply curve. Because that's why in the question they have said market equilibrium quantity is changing from A to B. So when you are at point A, this is how the supply curve is supposed to be, right? Because market equilibrium is when demand and supply intersect each other. So in this case, they are intersecting at point A. That's why quantity is at point A, right? So if that's the case, this would have been the quantity, this would have been the price. Cool. But they are saying due to some reason, quantity is changing to point B. When will that happen? That will happen. So quantity will become point B and price will be this only when the supply curve goes through or cuts the demand curve at point B. So what should happen here is the supply curve is supposed to shift. And a decrease in the cost of production of good X will result in the supply of good X to increase like this, curve to shift out. Why? When the cost of production is dropping for the producer, they are making more profit now because their cost has dropped. So what will happen? They will put out more products to the market. So that is what is happening here. Supply curve shifts out. As a result, you can see demand curve still the same, and you are moving from point A to B. But you should know to draw the supply curve to get the answer roughly. Right? So you take all of them away, a decrease in the cost of production of good X will lead to a movement from point A to B. How did that happen? The supply increased. Is that clear? So I told you the question is easy, but it's not as straightforward as the previous question we did. Cool, all good? Again, if you have doubts, you have to check out that video, because then only you will get a basic understanding to at least try these questions, right? And in this question, we used another technique we normally use, or you normally should use when it comes to MCQs. When you say, let's say, sometimes in a question, you are not sure how to arrive at the answer. You might read the question, you don't know the answer directly. But here, what did we do is, you see, when I read the answer, I didn't directly jump to one answer. Sorry, when I read the question, I didn't jump to the answer directly. But what I did was, I went through each of the answers individually. And what did I do? I eliminated the obviously wrong ones. I eliminated the obviously wrong ones. Even before I drew this supply curve, I knew the green one is the answer for this question. That is because the other three are wrong for sure. The other three are wrong for sure. Because an increase in the price of the substitute good, you can't move from A to B. From point A, the curve should have shifted out. An increase in consumer income, to show it in a graph, the demand curve should have shifted out. A decrease in consumer income, demand curve should have shifted in. So that way, I knew all the three answers, the first three answers are wrong. Even though I'm not sure what the fourth answer means, that's the only possible answer for this question, potentially. In that way, now you will think, okay, why the green one is the answer? If you think in that way, now you will arrive at a proper reasoning for that, and you can mark it. Let's say you don't know green one can become the answer at all. Even then, since you know the other three are completely wrong, now you mark the fourth one and move on. Right? So that is one way of doing MCQ questions, eliminating the obviously wrong answers first. That way you will be left with maybe one or two possible answers. Then you look at those two and decide which one is more appropriate. That will reduce the choices. No, when you have less choice, it's easy to make the decision. So that is one tip for you all I'm giving now when doing MCQ questions. If you don't know the answer directly, eliminate the obviously wrong ones and reduce the choices you have. Sometimes you might end up with two choices, or you might end up with only one. If you are left with only one, you are lucky, you can mark it and move on. If it's two, now you have to look at those two and somehow find the right answer. At least by that point, you have only two. No, if you mark one out of luck, there's a 50-50 chance for you to get the right one, right? Whereas if you have 5 answers, you mark one means only 20% chance of getting it right. So you'll be increasing your odds if you follow that method. Next, the related demand equation for the given demand schedule is, okay, so there's a demand schedule given, and a very basic question, you are supposed to find the demand equation using the information given in the table. So what is the demand equation? Right. So here, this question I just put so that I can explain the process of finding equilibrium, finding the demand equation using a demand schedule. Even though it's very basic, some of you might not know it completely to find the answer for such questions. So I'll take you through it now. So you know at price 15 demand is 100, at price 25 demand is 60, and you are supposed to find the demand equation. So first of all, tell me, what is the demand equation's general format? QD equals A plus or minus? Plus or minus? Minus dP, right? Minus dP. That is the demand equation's basic format, right? Cool. Now, next thing you have is to first, whenever you are finding a demand equation, all you are supposed to do is mainly find only two things. What are those two things? Here in this QD equals A minus BP, there are only two things you are supposed to find. What are those two things? A and B, only those two. Because P and QD will remain P and QD, because price is whatever you put in the equation. Whenever you put a price, for that price, you will get a corresponding quantity demanded. So only two components out of these four that you are supposed to find here are the A and the B, right? So what is A? Tell me first, tell that to me. What is A? A is the autonomous demand. A is the autonomous demand, right? Autonomous demand means what? What is autonomous demand? Autonomous demand means the demand when the price is zero. Demand when the price is zero. Okay, so that is what autonomous demand is. Okay, so that's keep that in your head. And what is the slope? Slope, to find that, first there is an equation, right? So out of these A and B, we know A is autonomous demand, B is the variance of the slope. Now, is the value of A given in the table? It's not given in the table. So directly we don't know the value of A. So first what we'll do is we'll find out the value that we can, that is B, right? Since A is not given, B, we can find it out. Because to find B, like I said, there is an equation. What's the equation to find B? Find the value of B. Delta QD over delta P. Change in QD over change in price. Okay. So when you use this equation, change in QD over change in price, now let's say you can go from 15 to 25 or 25 to 15. It's up to you. So let's say we are going from 15 to 25 because we need a change in the price. No, change in the price means from one price you should go to another. Then only you can find the change. So what is the change in the price when you go from 15 to 25? It's 10 rupees. It's 10 rupees. Increase of 10 rupees. When that happens, what is the change in the demand? The change in the demand is a minus 40. So what is the value of B?
Minus 4.
Minus 4 now. That's the value of B. And you see here, now it's a little tricky because some of you, what you might do is you might take this whole minus 4, go to this demand curve and put that. When you put minus 4, what will happen is here you already have a minus. Minus into minus might become plus. It will become plus. So this point you need to remember. This minus that is found here in the answer is a result of what? Is a result of demand dropping when price increasing. Price plus 10, demand minus 40. That's why you are getting a minus. No, that minus is what we already have here. I told you the demand equation's general format is A minus BP. The minus is there integrated in the demand equation to show price and demand are negatively related. And due to that negative relation only, we end up with minus answer. That minus is already here. So what you have to do here is just take the number 4 and put it in place of B. Don't take minus 4 and go and mess things up. Right? So remember, QD A minus BP, the minus is this minus that you have found in the answer. Just take that 4 and put it in the demand equation. So your demand equation for now is QD equals A, we don't know the value, minus 4B. Sorry, minus 4P. Is that clear up until this point? So we have found one of the two components. There's only one more left. Is this part, up until this part, are you all okay? Right. Now we are supposed to find the value of A. We need that now. So how to do that? It's pretty simple actually. Now we know for a fact, right, with this equation we have here, if we put 15 in the place of price, in quantity demanded, we'll get 100. That's what the table says. So what you can do is, you can take that 15, so QD equals A minus 4, in the place of price, you put 15. If you put 15 here, what will be the QD? QD will be equal to what? QD will be equal to 100 because that's what the table says. A table and curve and equations all say the same thing. No, if you put a price, it will tell for that price what is the demand. So 15 is the price, and we know for 15 price demand is 100. Now if you look at this equation, 100 equals A minus 4 into 15. There's only one unknown variable, which is A. You solve the equation for A, make that the subject, you get the value of A. So how much is the value of A? 100 equals A minus 4 into 15 is minus 60. So you bring the 60 to the other side. So it's gonna be A equals, so 100, so minus 60 comes to the other side, means 100 plus 60. So it's gonna be A equals 160. So we have found the value of A now. Are you all okay? Did you all get that? Or do you want me to show how this 60 came to the other side and became a plus 60? That is something you might have learned in O level or before that itself. So are you all okay with how A became 160? Afsha, Famida, Fawaz, Kizra, Sheed, are you okay with this? Right. Now you have your demand equation, which is QD equals A value is 160 minus 4P. That's your demand equation. And is it given? Yeah, the green one. QD equals 160 minus 4P. You can actually double check it. You can take this 15 price, put it in place of price P, and see whether you get QD equals 100. You can put 25 in place of P and see whether you get 60 for QD or not. So we'll see that 160 minus 40 into 25 equals QD. So 160 minus 100 is equal to how much? 60. So correct. If price is 25, quantity demanded is 60. Price is 25, quantity demanded is 60. So is that clear? And like I said, here also in finding A also, you can put 25 instead of 15 and find the answer yourself. Again, how do you do that? This is how it's done. So let's say 100 equals, sorry. For now, we know QD equals A minus 4 into P. In place of P, you put 25 means QD should become 60. Then 60 equals A minus 4 into 25 is minus 100. So it's going to be 60 plus 100 equals, again, A. A value is 160. So you see here, whatever price you put, you will get the right answer. The same answer actually. Is that clear? And even for this, you can go the other way around. You can go from 25 to 15. So if you're going from 25 to 15, price is dropping by 10. Demand would increase by 40. Again, same answer, minus 4. So the slope will be the same. A value will be the same. So whatever directions you take, your answer will be 1. Clear? Cool. Awesome. Perfect. Next question. Demand and supply equations are given below. The equilibrium price and quantity for this good are respectively. Okay, for a particular good, demand and supply equations are given. You are supposed to find the equilibrium price and quantity. What is the equilibrium price? What is the equilibrium quantity? Right. So before we do this question, just wanted to know, did anyone go out today and did you all notice queues in petrol sheds? Because I didn't get to go out today because because yesterday the fuel, the minister said they'll be distributing petrol to all the sheds from yesterday. If they have done it today, there should be no queues in sheds. That's why I asked. I have to go out and check actually. Demand and supply equations are given below. QD equals 20 minus P, QS equals minus 8 plus 6P. The equilibrium price and quantity. Okay. So normally, what is the first step here? How do you find equilibrium price and quantity? The first step is you have to write this QD equals QS because that's what market equilibrium is. QD equals QS. Right. Then in place of QD, you write down the demand equation, which is 20 minus P. And in place of QS, you have to write down the supply equation, minus 8 plus 6P. Then there's only one unknown variable here, which is P, right? Which is P. You just make that the subject and get the value of P. And how much is the value of P? You simply bring all the p's to one side. So here you have minus p, so you bring it to the other side of the equation. It will become a plus p, and this minus 8, you bring it to the other side, it will become a plus 8. So 20 plus 8 equals 6p plus p. So it's going to be 28 equals 7 p's. So you divide this side by 7. You do the same on the other side. You end up with price equals 4 rupees. 4 rupees. So when the price is 4, you know the yellow and the green answers are out. But the red and the blue have 4 rupee prices, but the units are different. So you have to find the equilibrium quantity also. Remember this. Now we have found the value of P to be 4, no? And this value of price is being equal to 4. When is it happening? When quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. When QD is equal to QS, price is 4. So that's what we have done here. When QD was equal to QS, we found out price is supposed to be 4. That means that's the equilibrium price. Now you have to find the equilibrium quantity. So what do? What's the next step? You take this price and substitute it in the demand equation. So demand equation, we know 20 minus P. So in the place of this price, you substitute this equilibrium price you have found. So 20 minus 4 is equal to 16 units. So what have we done? We have found out the demand at the equilibrium price of 4 rupees. That means the quantity you get is supposed to be the equilibrium quantity because we have found the demand at the equilibrium price. No, so whatever quantity you get is supposed to be the equilibrium quantity. To double check, if you want, take this 4 rupee and put it in the supply equation. Minus 8 plus 6 into equilibrium price 4. You solve it. Minus 8 plus 6 into 4 is how much? How much 6 into 4? 42, 24. So minus 8 plus 24, how much? Again, 16 units. Again, 16 units. So you know at 4 rupee price, demand is 16, quantity supplied is 16. That means that's the equilibrium quantity. But this step you don't have to actually do, right? Because when you put it in the demand equation itself, you know 16 is the quantity, you mark it and move on. And remember, have the habit, one more tip, have the habit of always taking this equilibrium price and running towards the demand equation rather than taking it towards the supply equation to find the equilibrium quantity. Right? Always have the habit of taking this equilibrium price 4 or whatever in a different question and substitute that price you found in the demand equation, not the supply equation. Why I say this is because in our syllabus, we mainly focus on taxes on producers, subsidies on producers. Because of that, what happens is, in some questions, before tax and subsidy, you might have a supply equation, which is in this question this. After tax or subsidy on producer, the supply equation might be a different one, right? So the thing is, you will have two supply equations then. And in a question where you get the equilibrium price and you take this equilibrium price and put it in the wrong supply equation, your answer will be wrong now. You get what I'm saying? So there's a risk now, because in supply equation, you might have two. If there's tax on producer or subsidy on producer, sometimes there's a chance you might have two supply equations. And there's a chance you might take this 4 rupee and put it in the wrong supply equation. At least here there's no tax or subsidy. No, sometimes after tax or after subsidy, you might have to find the equilibrium price. It's the same template, it's the same method, but only difference is the price you find will be the price when you equate demand and the new supply equation. So when you find the price, you should take that price and put it in the demand equation or the new supply equation. You might take it and put it in the old one and get your answer wrong. But you see here, whether there's a tax or subsidy on producer, the demand equation doesn't change. So that's why I always recommend students to, whenever they are finding equilibrium price and quantity, once the price is found, take the price and substitute it in the demand equation, not the supply. Because of that small chance of you putting the equilibrium price in the before or after supply equation. Demand means no issues. Is that clear? Quick. Is that clear? Only if you quickly respond, I can quickly move on to the next question. Okay, the last question for the day. Demand and supply curves of a good are given below. The market equilibrium price could rise from P1 to P2 when? So according to the question, price is at P1. The quantity they didn't say anything about. Okay, price is at P1, and when will the price be P2? Out of the four answers, which one will lead to that? Yeah, which answer? Yumni, what do you think? Ubaid? Samita? Hasna, Zaib, what is the answer? Like I said, everyone should take part in the discussion. Okay, that's why I always say this is not a class, this is a discussion session. I want you to say, because some of you actually type huge paragraphs and send. Actually, that's awesome to see. And if you want, you can unmute and talk also. Some of you actually, when I ask a question, they are typing huge paragraphs explaining everything, and sometimes the words they use are, if someone reads it, anyone can understand it. That's how they explain stuff to me. So that's how I'm very happy to see those kind of situations. And actually, I want to see everyone trying that. Right, you look at the first answer, consumers' income increased. Consumers' incomes increased. Okay, so when consumers' income increases, okay, so we are at this P1 price level now. So we are at this equilibrium point now, and they are saying somehow price should go to P2. Now, in this case, P2 equilibrium can be met under two situations. One is when the supply curve cuts through the demand curve at this point, because at that point you can see the equilibrium will be at P2 price. Or the other situation is when demand increases due to some reason, demand increases and cuts through the supply curve at this point. Then also price will be P2. Right, so there are two situations. One, demand should increase or supply should drop. Right, so we'll look at the first answer. Consumer incomes increased. So when consumer income increases, which curve will shift, demand or supply?
Demand.
Demand curve will be the one that's supposed to shift, and income is increasing. Demand curve will shift out or in. Will it shift out like this, or will it shift in? What will happen when income increases? Quick. Demand curve will shift out. Consumer income increases means increase in demand. So the curve will shift out like this. So there you go. You have the equilibrium, P2. So that actually is the answer for this question, but we'll entertain the other answers also. First, we'll look at this one, the orange one. Price of complementary product increased. So when price of complementary good increases, so for example, we'll take price of tea. So demand of tea. What is a complementary good to tea? What is a product you use along with tea? Yeah, good example, Zainab. Sugar. So price of tea is increasing, right? Price of tea is increasing. Obviously, quantity demanded of tea will drop. We'll take the complementary product here. Sugar. Price of sugar, no change. But what will happen to demand of sugar? What do you guys think? Will demand of sugar drop or increase when price of tea goes up? When price of tea goes up, what will happen to demand of sugar? Demand of sugar will drop. Why? Because we normally use sugar with tea. Since with increase in price, we are reducing our tea consumption. So sugar consumption also drops along with tea consumption. So if you look at the demand of sugar now, price of sugar, no change. Right? Price of sugar, no change. But due to price of tea going up, demand of sugar is dropping now. That means the curve will shift inside. So curve shifting inside, won't get us to T2 price. It will get us to a price here. That's not in the question. So that is also out. Cost of production was substantially lowered. That means cost of production is dropping. When cost of production drops, what will happen to which curve? Which curve will shift now, demand or supply curve? Supply curve will shift. Which side? Outside right or inside left? It will shift out. You see, when it shifts out, what's going to happen? Demand and supply are meeting here now. So price has to drop. When supply increases for a product, price will drop. No. So here we are talking about a situation where the price should go up. So that will go up when consumers go out and ask for more, when their income goes up. So consumer income goes up, consumer demand goes up, price of the product goes up. One question or one thing I can explain additionally here, look at the blue answer for this question. The answer is the red one. Consumers income increases, as a result demand increases, and we have equilibrium at T2 price. Now look at the blue answer. It talks about something called legal maximum price. Do you know what's a maximum price? Do you know what is this maximum price? Any idea? It is set to protect whom? We'll maybe talk about this later on when we get to chapter 3 questions. But in this question itself, since it has come, I'll just explain it briefly and then finish it off. Right. Very good, Halana. The proper definition for maximum price, or we call it ceiling price, right? Not price floor. It's called the ceiling price. What that means is, when in a market, when the equilibrium price, let's say in this case, the equilibrium price is P1, and let's say price is 15 rupees for this product. This 15 equilibrium price, let's say it's kind of, even though it's based on demand and supply, that price is kind of unfair to the consumer. It's too much for the consumer. Let's say consumers can't afford that. Right? Normally, that recently happened for Anchor. Normally for Anchor, for rice, for what do you call coconuts, government sets maximum price. They set a limit to the price. They will set an artificially legal price ceiling, which will be like the highest price the product can be sold and bought in the market for. No one can sell it for a price higher than that. It will be illegal to do so. For Anchor, there was a maximum price earlier. Now it's removed, right? Earlier it was when 400 grams, the maximum price was about 380 or something. At that time, every milk powder, not just Anchor, any milk powder, maximum price would be 380, right? Why they set that price? When consumers can't afford the market equilibrium price. In this case, 15, let's say, is the market equilibrium price, and this 15 is too much to the consumer. Now, to protect the consumer, government will come in and set an artificial illegal price and be like telling the producers, here, you can't sell above the price I'm telling you. 15 is too much. Consumers are affected in an adverse way. So I'm setting this new artificial legal maximum price. You can't sell above that maximum price. If you sell it, it's illegal. I'll put you in jail or I'll put a fine. Now, my question is, this 15 itself is unfair. No, that's why government comes in, sets a maximum price to protect the consumer. If the maximum price is supposed to be effective, useful, It should be more than 15 or less than 15. Obviously, it should be less than 15. Right? Let's say if it is 10 rupees, now it will be effective because consumers 15 was too much, because demand and supply met and said 15 is the price. That 15 was too much to the consumer, but because of the situation in the market, 15 is the price demand and supply agreed on, equilibrium price. But still it's too much. In that case, government set a legal price, and for that legal price, maximum price to be effective, it should be lower than the equilibrium price. So if 10 is the maximum price, no one can sell above 10 rupees. The maximum price that can be charged for the product is 10. Producers can charge 9 or 8 or 7, but they won't know. 15 was what they were getting. Government has said maximum is 10. So no one is going to sell at 8 rupees or 7 rupees. They will sell at maximum 10 rupees itself. But here they are saying, in the question you see, they are saying price P2 was set as legally maximum price. What that means is, in the question they are suggesting, okay, government is setting P2 as the maximum price. Let's say 20 rupees. When government sets a maximum price above the equilibrium price, what will happen is producers won't go to that 20 rupees. Why? Earlier, there was no limit. Even when there's no limit, producer and consumer agreed to sell at 15. Right? There was no upper limit. No, producers could have charged 1,000 rupees also. They settled at 15 because they knew this is the price they can sell the product in the market at a reasonable price. Right? But it was unfair for the consumer. So government comes in. If they come and set 20 rupee as the maximum price, what will happen is producers will still end up selling at 15, consumers will still end up buying at 15, because that was the equilibrium price already. If it's unfair, government should set a price below that maximum price for this maximum price to take some effect. Might have some effect on the market. Government should set below. If it's above, it won't have any effect on the market. The product will be sold at the equilibrium price 15 itself. So that's why price P2 being set as the legal maximum price, producers cannot sell above 20, but they can sell below 20. No, so they'll be like, we'll be selling at 15 itself. So price won't go to P2. It will remain at P1. That's the reason why blue color is not the answer for this question. Later on, when we talk about chapter 3 questions, we'll talk more about this maximum price, minimum price stuff. For this question, the answer is consumer income increasing. As a result, demand curve shifts out. That will lead to P2 becoming the price. Is that clear? So I took about 13 minutes extra, but I started around 3:40, so I've taken only about 4 minutes extra. Thank you for your valuable time. And actually, I was planning on doing another live Kahoot with about 10 to 15 questions today itself, but with these 8 questions itself, we covered the theory parts and lots of background concepts related to these questions. So I believe anyway, you got a lot of value out of this. So that Kahoot live session that we'll have, I'll make it about 20 questions and then give it to you throughout this week. So before you come for next class, you can do that quiz. It will be again based mainly on chapter 1. And I already told you chapter 2, you should have started studying. So in the coming weeks and all, we'll move away from chapter 1 to chapter 2 also. So next week also, it will be MCQs. From that week onwards, we should again start exactly for us. I was going to say that essay questions. Okay, because we should be covering both, but mainly I wanted to cover essay questions in these sessions. But I'm going with MCQ this. I wanted to do 2 essays and then I wanted to do 2 MCQ papers. This is just 1 paper now, even though we have covered it in 2 sessions, it's just 20 MCQ paper. So that's why I wanted to do another MCQ paper consisting of chapter 1 questions only mainly for the next class. From then onwards, we'll be usually covering the essay type questions. Cool. So see you all in the next class. So I'll be giving you the live session again next week. Next week's paper will have chapter 1 and 2 questions. Okay, not just chapter 1, it will have chapter 1 and 2 questions again. That way we can transition into chapter 2 from chapter 1 in a gradual manner. Okay, so with that, see you all next week. And I'll be putting the link now. If I don't do it, just send me a message so that I'll be reminded to put it for that seminar recording of the YouTube in the YouTube. Okay, so next week we have BS exam on Tuesday. If you are not coming, since you are coming to sessions every day, send me a message. I'll send you the link for recording of that session. Okay, see you all next week. Have a great week ahead. Same to you, Kanishka. You're most welcome.